Good afternoon to you. Mark Suttoth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Oh, let's move this out of the way. It's almost 5 p.m. It's about 5:47 p.m. Eastern Time as I'm putting this together. In Wilmington, North Carolina, you're going to hear all kinds of racket, and that's the reality. I have a family. There's a beagle outside the office window. I'm on the second floor of our house, and so you may hear the beagle. It's very upset for some reason. I guess it knows that there's a Category 4 hurricane headed this way. So what I want to do is get into the meat and potatoes of the latest advisory package on all of the systems that are out there. I want to be as brief as possible and not put too much extraneous commentary in. I did that yesterday, and I think it got the point across. And we want to focus now on impacts and what to expect and when to expect those impacts. And eventually we're going to talk about how to find very helpful information to know more about what's going to happen in your neck of the woods, not quite down to your street level, but pretty close. So let's get rid of my mug just for the time being and take a look at the latest satellite. And Tropical Tidbits is having a rough time, as you can imagine. This might not even load for me. Poor Levi. I mean, how many servers can you actually have? You know, it's just crazy. So we may skip the satellite at the moment and just get right to the information. This is Olivia in the Central Pacific. And I do want to focus more than just on Florence, because we do have folks that watch my videos all around the world. All right, so Olivia weakening, but headed towards the Hawaiian Islands. It is possible that this has a more direct impact for areas west of the Big Island than did Lane. So now we see that we do have the tropical storm warnings in effect for the southeast part of the Hawaiian Island chain, and eventually I think that even Oahu here, where Honolulu is located, will also have that tropical storm warning. And I believe we can go up here and look at the floater. This shouldn't have any issues loading, I hope. Oh, look at that, it does. It's everything's laggy. Everybody wants to see what's happening. Just real quick to show you the organization of Olivia continues to deteriorate, which is good news. There's the big island of Hawaii right there, so it's closing in. Going to be a big rainmaker for some areas. Again, the biggest threat, the upslope flow from Olivia impacting the islands there. So, you know, use common sense, avoid the flooded areas if they happen, and hopefully this won't be too big of a deal. But nevertheless, it's coming. All right, in the Atlantic Basin, 95L now, up to 50% for development. And if we just look at the 5-day graphical tropical weather outlook, you get an idea of where this is headed, generally towards Harvey territory, where Harvey made landfall last year. And you got to watch out. This could develop and try to bring tropical storm conditions. You never know. It's the peak of the season. Conditions are very ripe. We also have this system that's going to try to develop out here in the North Atlantic somewhere. It is just absolute madness across the tropics. Looking at the different storms individually, this is from the 12 o'clock special update from the Hurricane Center. I'll refresh the page. Still noon. So let's look at Helene and Isaac. So Isaac here continues to show little change in strength, which is good news. 75 miles per hour on the wind speed. And as you can see, still moving west fairly briskly overall. I mean, it's not crawling. And it's expected to stay a hurricane as it passes through the central portion of the Lesser Antilles to the north of Barbados, which is right here, and to the south of Guadeloupe. So in between is where it looks like the center would pass. But remember, it's more than just a center. All right? It's more than just a dot on a map. Probably should get T-shirts made that talk about that, right? And, no watches or warnings just yet. This, too, is closing in, the clock counting down towards zero as it makes a beeline towards the islands. And we'll talk about this ever increasingly. I don't really see much in the way of any concern if we look at the discussion and the key messages. This really helps to summarize everything. And the important thing is that Isaac is a small hurricane, and uncertainty in the intensity forecast is greater than normal. Although Isaac is expected to begin weakening when it approaches the Lesser Antilles, it's still likely to be at or near hurricane intensity. So, just keep that in mind. Isaac's fairly small, and so we could see some interesting either positive or negative fluctuations up or down with those intensities. Meanwhile, Helene, it's way out in the open Atlantic. No issues here with that. adding to the ACE points, the accumulated cyclone energy for the season. That's the Azores. I guess if you live in the Azores Islands, you should be watching this. We got land masses all over the place, don't we? Now, let's see if the information on Florence has updated. Still the noon Eastern Time updates. I'm going to move over here to Ben Knowles' tweet. And he was mentioning earlier this afternoon the latest super ensemble of the Euro, and he talks about that more here, that it consists of 312 members of the same model, averaged over the past 6 model runs, just really trying to get an idea of what this is going to do, and the power of supercomputers, crunching numbers, statistical probabilities of certain things happening and certain things not happening, yields a result of this. And as he says, the latest super ensemble basically splits the NC, or SC, North Carolina, South Carolina uprights, it's easier for me to say that, with a Florence landfall. So what's the takeaway? What is he saying? The super ensemble of the European suggesting a landfall at the Brunswick-Horry County line. Highway 17 goes right through there. Cherry Grove, that area. So how bad would that be for areas to the right of the track? This area through here especially. Extremely bad. So we need to watch this and see if this is indeed what happens, because yes, other models are bringing this up more towards the Outer Banks and then kind of messing around out here, coming in. Just a lot of weird things that the models, the global models, are not converging. The United Kingdom Met model, the UK Met model, also somewhere in this vicinity with a landfall, roughly speaking. Certainly not down here. The GFS sitting around up here. So it'll be interesting to see what the National Hurricane Center says. We'll refresh this. Still the 12 p.m. Special update. Forecast advisory is out. There we go. This is updated. Interest in the southeastern and mid-Atlantic states should monitor the progress of Florence. Storm surge and hurricane watches could be issued for portions of these areas by Tuesday morning. So this is literally the latest update here, but this is more of the forecast advisory. Machine language will read this information and populate some of the apps and automated tracking software, but I can glean some helpful information out of it for you. Located at 25.4, you'll know this already by the time you watch, 61.1, and it's moving to the west-northwest now, or at 285 degrees on a compass at about 11 knots, so it's picking up. Air pressure down to 939 millibars. Maximum sustained winds are 140 miles per hour, or 120 knots. It is forecast over the coming hours and days to become 130, 135, so they get it really close to Category 5 right through here. Category 5 on the doorstep at our, let's see, this would be 18Z tomorrow, and then 2 a.m. Wednesday near Category 5. And then it looks like it starts to taper off just a little bit, making landfall here 33.7 and 77, so that's just south of the Wilmington, North Carolina area by just a little bit. We're talking about just a couple of tens of miles at 140 miles per hour. And that is just devastating bad news for me and everybody else that lives in southeast North Carolina. Finally, it looks like it moves inland. Look at that longitude there, farther and farther inland, increasing in the latitude as well. So it does not show that turn up towards the Outer Banks, etc. So there you have it. That's an analysis of the forecast advisory. And the 5 p.m. official information is out. There it is, 140 miles per hour. Wow. So let's see if the discussion has been updated real quick. Get rid of that. Forecast discussion is out. I want to read this to you. Unfortunately, the models were right. Florence has rapidly intensified into an extremely dangerous hurricane, with 30-second GO-16 visible imagery showing well-defined eye wall mesovortices rotating inside of the eye. A NOAA Hurricane Hunter aircraft found peak step frequency microwave radiometer winds of about 120 knots, with flight level winds and dropsonde measurements also supporting that value for the initial wind speed estimate. Notably, the aircraft data also show the size of the hurricane force winds has doubled in the past 24 hours. That is very bad in terms of storm surge, and people impacted by hurricane force winds. None of the guidance suggests that Florence has peaked in intensity, and this is supported by a continuation of a low shear environment and even warmer water temperatures there over the next 36 hours. Thus, the intensity forecast is raised from the previous one, bringing Florence close to Category 5 intensity tomorrow. Near landfall, the vertical wind shear could increase, along with the increasing likelihood of eye wall cycles. While the intensity forecast shows some weakening of the maximum winds near landfall, the wind field is expected to grow with time, which increases the storm surge and inland wind threats. The bottom line is that there is high confidence that Florence will be a large and extremely dangerous hurricane, regardless of its exact intensity. Florence has recently turned west-northwestward, still moving at 11 knots. The hurricane is expected to accelerate in that direction over the next day or two due to the building mid-level ridge over the northwestern Atlantic Ocean. By late Wednesday, a turn toward the northwest is forecast due to the orientation of the Atlantic ridge, along with a decrease, in forward speed, rather just get in and out, due to a new ridge building over the Great Lakes. It's just a ridge festival. There is a new player in the forecast as well. Wonderful. With the disturbance over the northwestern Caribbean adding some uncertainty in the ridge strength over the southeastern United States. Perhaps it isn't surprising that the model spread has increased on this cycle. Model spread has increased. God. With a small eastward shift overall. The official forecast is nudged in the direction of the trend, but is west of the model consensus. It is important not to focus on the exact forecast track. Well, I certainly need to focus on that for my work. As average NHC errors at days 4 and 5 were about 140 and 100 nautical miles respectively. And dangerous hazards will extend well away from the center. The NOAA G4 will continue to conduct synoptic surveillance missions every 12 hours. Special weather balloons will be launched, etc., to help increase the data, more data in for the numerical models. Life-threatening surge is coming. Freshwater flood problem, that's coming. These are all, I should just put skull and crossbones over here. I wish I had a way to just drop them in. Because this is absolutely deadly serious. Absolutely. Every bit of it. All four of these, almost on the order of terrifying. You're talking about a storm surge. We're going to start seeing that come out when the watches and warnings are issued. But I'm seeing some preliminary reports indicating that we could see water levels rise as high as 10 feet and more than likely higher than that above ground level from the surge and the high tide. And, of course, the rainfall, that's going to be a big issue. The inland wind damage, the wet soils that we've had already this summer. You folks need to take this seriously, and you got to evacuate if you're told to do so. Don't keep waiting and don't keep wondering, well, let me just see what happens with the center. If the center's not coming here, in other words, I don't want to hear this conversation at any dinner tables. Like I'm going to be there. I don't want this conversation to go down. Honey, what do you think about the hurricane tonight? Should we evacuate? No, dear. I want to wait and see what the center forecast is tomorrow, because we are just a little bit north of the center, and I don't think the center is going to pass over us. Well, if you're looking at just the center, and that's your only concern, then you're going to be in a very bad way, because this is going to grow in size. So imagine, instead of it being a precision strike from a tactical nuclear weapon, it's like being carpet bombed over a wide area, okay? And I can't put it any more plainly than that. This is not a Hurricane Charlie, okay? It is a wider, larger hurricane with a massive area of ocean pushing in front of itself towards the coastline, and it'll change the way we talk about hurricanes in the Tar Heel State and maybe even the Palmetto State, that's South Carolina, for generations to come, I do believe. So, what am I going to do? I'm getting ready to head up to Rodanthe, actually, on the Outer Banks in a couple of hours. I'm going to set up a couple of camera systems up there, and those will feed into our app, Hurricane Impact. I wish that I could make all of this available for free for everyone, but I would go bankrupt if I did so. This is part of what I do for my job. So grab the app off the App Store. It's only $4. No, it does not work on Android. Yes, we tried. We couldn't get it to work, and I'm not going to sell a defective app. I'm also on the Patreon, and the memberships associated with that. Just trying to figure out how to pay for all of this, folks, and I try to make it affordable. The rest of this information, of course, always available at no cost. But I'm going to put those cameras up, and we will certainly make sure emergency management has access and never charge them for that. And the Weather Channel will be showing the feeds as well. They license the video for me. It helps with my funding as well. It's all collective, okay? We got to make sure that I can do this for a living, and it'll be available on the Weather Channel from time to time. They are fantastic to work with, and they will be showing it, especially as things deteriorate. I'm going to talk more about the coverage and what I plan to do later, but that's the first sort of hint, if you will, at my plans. In the next couple of hours, I'll be heading up towards the Outer Banks. Cameras will be set up early in the morning, and then we will go from there. All right? I'll post another video update tomorrow morning. Information on Twitter, be sure to follow me at HurricaneTrack. We also have a special Twitter feed in our app as well. And I try not to play favorites where one side gets more information than the other. But with the purchase of something or whatever, there is a little bit of exclusivity and inside, content. Of course there is. But I'm never going to withhold information that could be life saving, put it that way. That's not how I operate. So there you go. I'm going to try to get some sleep tonight, too, at some point. And then, we have about 70 to 80 hours until this happens, something like that. In fact, let's just go back before I sign off. Remember, this is going to be very fluid, how I handle things. The 5 p.m. map, is it? It is. So, 2 p.m. Thursday, all right? So, 72 hours until landfall. And they did shift it north just a little bit here. I'll zoom in on that, hopefully. Come on, cooperate. And it is just a little bit more north of the Cape Fear region, which is interesting because, we saw that super ensemble with a landfall down here. So maybe a little bit better news for Wilmington, not so good for the Outer Banks. Now you know why I'm going up to Rodanthe, which is right out here. All right, now I'm going to sign off because I got a lot to do. I always appreciate you tuning in and watching. The interaction, the engagement is absolutely amazing. Nothing in the world, in terms of a career, pleases me more than to be able to provide you with something that helps you. And hopefully I have done so, and I'll do my best to continue to do so. All right, I'm done. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I will have more for you tomorrow morning.